Have you formed an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty on the cause of Mr. Floyd's death?
Yes, I have.
Would you please tell the jury what that opinion or opinions are?
Yes, Mr. Floyd died from a low level of oxygen, and this caused damage to his brain that we see, and it also caused a PEA arrhythmia that caused his heart to stop.
And by PEA, you mean pulseless electrical activity?
Correct. It's a particular form of an abnormal beat of the heart, an arrhythmia, a particular form.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ted Rollins. Glad to have you along with us on this Thursday. Court is in the lunch recess. That means it's time for our daily sidebar. And today, the state is using their expert witness to make the link between the defendant's use of force and how it allegedly killed George Floyd. Dr. Martin Tobin is a pulmonologist and a professor. He's also a physiologist. He's very in tune to the human body and how it works. And he's using his expertise in all of these fields to give the jury an anatomy lesson, encouraging jurors to feel around on their own throats at one point to get a better understanding of the structures of the neck and throat. Dr. Tobin also used a number of animations to help put his complex medical analysis into context to jurors, including how the handcuffs used on George Floyd and Floyd's position on the ground contributed to his death.
What is the effect of the handcuffs in the context of what happened to Mr. Floyd?
The handcuffs are extremely important in Mr. Floyd, but the handcuffs on their own, just handcuffs per se, are not that important. It must be the handcuffs combined with the street. And it's because of the positioning of the handcuffs at the back, then how he's manipulated with the handcuffs by both Officer Chauvin and by Officer King, how they manipulate the handcuffs, and they're pushing the handcuffs into his back and pushing them high. Then on the other side, you have the street. So the street is playing a crucial part because he's against a hard asphalt street. So the way they're pushing down on his handcuffs combined with the street, his left side, and it's particularly the left side we see that. It's like the left side is in a vice. It's totally being pushed in, squeezed in from each side, from the street at the bottom, and then from the way that the handcuffs are manipulated. It's not just the handcuffs. It's how the handcuffs are being held, how they're being pushed, where they're being pushed, that totally interfere with central features of how we breathe.
Doctor, in this case, were you able to observe whether Mr. Floyd's breathing was impacted by the handcuffs and the placement on the street?
Yes, I was.
What did you observe, Dr. Tobin?
What I observed is particularly in terms of the hands of the police and the handcuffs, particularly on the left side. So they were forcing his left wrist up into his chest, forcing it in tight against his chest, forcing it high up. And you have to keep in mind that the opposite side of this is the street. So he was being squashed between the two sides. And so this meant that he couldn't exert his pump handle because, the street totally blocked his pump handle. There was no way he could do any front to back movement. And again, the way they were pressing in on the back, there was absolutely no way that he could do any front to back movement. Then in addition, because of the knee that was rammed in against the left side of his chest, sometimes the knee was down on the arm or in against the chest. So this would have the same effect. So basically, on the left side of his lung, it was almost like a surgical pneumonectomy. It was almost to the effect as if a surgeon had gone in and removed the lung. Not quite, but along those lines. So there was virtually very little opportunity for him to be able to get any air to move into the left side of his chest.
All right, time to bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chantley Painter, who is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Court TV anchors Julie Grant and Michael Ayala. Chanley, we've been in courtrooms together where there's an expert with a huge resume. They go through the CV and you're thinking, oh, can't wait to hear this guy, and put you to sleep because they don't connect with the jury. This is not what's happening here.
No, it's the exact opposite, and I don't blame the jury. I'm engaged in everything he's saying. I'm just fascinated and learning. He has the visual aids going in the courtroom. He has the jury so enthralled that they're actually doing what he says to do. You know, put your hand on your neck, feel this, do that. They were doing that according to the pool reporter notes. In fact, I just had the latest pool reporter notes, and she says that she's struck by how engaged the jurors were through the whole testimony, despite the technical nature. They took notes and remained attentive throughout. So that's the impression this expert is leaving on the jury, and a big way to start the day for the prosecution.
Julie Grant, your thoughts on this Irish pulmonologist?
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts, Ted. Okay, so in terms of what the state did today in calling him, great move. Probably one of the best, if not the best moves I've seen so far by the state in doing this. I loved what a teacher this expert became, and he is one. He's a professor, so no surprise there that people were feeling, the breathing, within themselves as they were listening to him, and the explanations were going. Educating them was fantastic for the state. If I'm on the defense side, object. Okay, this is what I saw. This guy is obviously brilliant. He's a pulmonologist, so his area of expertise is in the respiratory system, right? So if you're on the defense side, you want to confine him to that and object to him opining to the cause of death. Object to him. I'll give you a couple examples here. For instance, like the pounds of pressure. He had an opinion to the pounds of pressure that Derek Chauvin had on George Floyd's body. That was something I made a point to ask Dr. Cyril Wecht about, someone who is a forensic pathologist who has done countless autopsies. This doctor has never done one. And so I asked him, do we know how much pressure? He said, Julie, that would be impossible to calculate that. And here's this guy who did not examine George Floyd's body coming up with that number. And one other thing, we're going to have, I'll be on the desk this afternoon, a forensic pathologist guest. We had him on last week, Dr. Peter Cummings, triple board certified, and he was watching along this morning, and we were conversing, and he said that there's absolutely no way he would know what George Floyd's oxygen level was. So if you're on the defense side, you've got to object and confine him to what he knows, but great move by the prosecutors calling him. I think he was probably the most effective witness so far, Ted.
Michael, what would you do on cross here, and what are your thoughts of the doctor?
Well, first of all, Julian, I think there's some agreement between the parties not to object. I really do, because there have been objectionable things going on both sides. Both sides don't seem to want to object. Maybe there's some agreement behind the scenes to let them do their case. I don't know, but I agree with you. There was a lot that this guy said that I would have been objecting to first and foremost. On cross, essentially what you're going to have to do is go into those exact things that Julie mentioned, the suppositions that he made. He made a lot of suppositions about what was going on with George Floyd, what type of conditions he was in. I would also go after it in a sense that, what are we asking our officers to be out there in the field, right? I mean, this guy's talking about a lot of technical stuff that these officers don't have any idea that this is what they're doing. And so I want to go after that as well. As far as how his testimony is going, when someone is smart, Ted, they're smart when they can take something complex and make it interesting and sound simple. And that's exactly what he did. He sat there, and I'm telling you, we were watching. And usually, like you said, you're kind of falling asleep when an expert is testifying. I was riveted to hear what he had to say. He was making it so palatable. So I think he was out of central casting. You throw in the brogue and all that other business. I think he was a great witness for the prosecution.
Oh, yeah, the brogue. Chanley, he's the first of, we're expecting several medical experts from the state, and then the defense will have their experts as well.
Yeah, so we're also expecting a toxicologist today, an emergency specialist or medicine specialist today. We learned this morning, right before Dr. Tobin's testimony, we heard Eric Nelson, which he made a great objection beforehand, which is, when are we going to hear from the medical examiner? Because this expert, Dr. Tobin, is testifying based on medical records, the autopsy report, that aren't in evidence yet. So he made that foundation objection before Dr. Tobin's testimony, and we learned that the medical examiner is expected to testify tomorrow. So a big witness for the the prosecution and I think for the defense tomorrow.
Dr. Tobin said at one point that even, because you're thinking this in the back of your mind all the time, is like, would a healthy person, someone who's not on drugs, someone who is in a different health position than George Floyd, would they have died in this same scenario? He addressed that and talked about it.
Now, Dr. Tobin, were or are you aware that Mr. Floyd had some pre-existing health conditions?
Yes, I am.
And how are you aware of that?
I mean, I read them in the records from Hennepin County and obviously also saw them mentioned in the autopsy.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to whether a person who had none of those pre-existing health conditions, a healthy person, would have died under the same circumstances as Mr. Floyd?
Yes, a healthy person subjected to what Mr. Floyd was subjected to would have died as a result of what he was subjected to.
Julie Grant, was this a little too much?
I think so, Ted. And again, this is where I think this expert went far beyond his own area of expertise, and I'll tell you why. I made sure I asked Dr. Cyril Wecht that question as well, that had George Floyd not had all of those various conditions with his heart and been a healthier guy, essentially, not have had COVID, all those various things we know about. And Dr. Wecht said there was absolutely no way to know what would have happened if George Floyd hadn't had all of those pre-existing conditions. So this goes to my point about this guy's a fabulous expert in pulmonology and talking about the lungs and breathing, all of that. But he has no business giving an opinion on cause of death. So I think the defense really has some work to do here. You can't unring the bell, as I always say. It's in. It came in, but they've got to do something to combat this on cross.
Michael, does it matter to you that he did this for free?
I think it matters a lot. I mean, at the end of the day, I was shocked by that. We found out that this was the first time he's doing a criminal case, which I found interesting, but he has an extensive resume in terms of doing civil case. And this is kind of where the experience of the prosecutors who are pro hoc vice and coming from the civil area, this is where I think some of their expertise may have come into play because they handled this direct examination so well. And he may have even been somebody they've come across in their civil practice because they contacted him, but he allowed to do it for free. And it sounds as though he's feeling not only scientifically strongly about this, but personally strongly about this.
Yeah. It sounds like somebody on that team said, "Oh, I got a guy. We'll call Tobin."
Exactly.
All right, that's it for the Daily Sidebar. Thank you all. We're going to step aside, take a break. Much more when we return. Stay with us.